Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode here on The Remedy. I'm your host, Pastor D, and I'm here today with, of course, the crew, the Remedy crew, and I'm going to introduce them to you very shortly. But before we do anything else, I want to tell you about the show for today. Um, it might be controversial for some people, but I think it's one of those conversations that we need to have. Okay, this is 2020, getting ready to move into 2021. We have COVID-19 to deal with. We have all kind of stuff going on in our lives that we need to deal with. Nevertheless, we want to entertain you for an hour and a half, and we want you to participate. So those of you who are watching either on YouTube or on Facebook, please participate in the conversation. We want to hear from you. Without any further ado, let's go. What's up, family? I'm missing somebody. There you go. There you go. There you
There
go.
I go. Let me fix
You
my
guys
hair.
look so good today.
Thank you.
Hey.
I feel like I'm.
Thank you.
I
They said
feel like
blonde
I'm
have more fun,
underdressed.
so I went blonde.
Check out the
Yes,
blue
Sister,
hair. over there.
yes.
Well, family, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Okay, how are you?
I'm on fall break now. I could have.
Staying safe. I hope.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Wash your hands. Clean
Having fun
everything around
inside.
you. 6 feet away from me. Right. Right.
Yes.
We have to, guys. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We know what's happening out there. It's getting worse. And I want you guys to remain healthy. So we have to do whatever we can to stay healthy, correct?
Wear your mask.
Correct.
So next week when we have our shows, everybody, please wear your mask.
I mean, if you want.
Is it
And,
true
we'll we'll also be 6 feet apart, right?
Absolutely. We're just about to put on the
had all my
mask.
I just actually had.
Is it true they shut Pennsylvania down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are currently on lockdown all over again.
Oh wow.
There you go.
Really?
Yo,
Okay.
lucky mask.
It's scary because you don't even know. I think we got to a point where you know we had somewhat of a new normal, and unfortunately, as predicted, things are. And then the scary part with that is that I think what they mentioned is earlier on, people they were seeing more of the disease to long-term facilities like nursing homes and hospitals, but now it's the small gatherings that we do
Yeah.
this is the problem. So we need to.
And that was one of the reasons why me and my family, we chose not to gather at any type of gathering whatsoever, whether it was a small party or wherever it was. Listen, we're still not out of this yet. And to me, I feel like it's important that all of us, we all have a role to play in making
Agreed.
sure that we take care of each other. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We are taking care of one another. So enough with COVID. We didn't come here to talk about COVID. Woody's looking at me like, okay, get on with it, Monday. Get on with it. Get on with it. It's 4 minutes within the show. We're talking about COVID. Now, would you believe me if I tell you it's been more than 50 years, a little bit more than 50 years, since the landmark of Loving v. Virginia Supreme Court case legalized interracial marriage
Marriages, yes.
in every state. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, more than just a little bit over 50 years. And here we are today. We're going to talk about whether or not it's a good idea. Wait, not a good idea. What's the title? Are you
Are you a sellout?
a sellout for for venturing outside of your culture, venturing outside of your race, and the quest for love. So, I did a little research, and this is what I found out today in our society. Okay, more than 1 in 6 newlywed couples are involved. Are people who are involved in, are people who are with multi-ethnic identities. So people who are marrying into different race or marrying into different ethnic. So, and I also found out that, for example, for people like Wendy and Melody, the younger millennials,
Gen Z.
They're
Don't disrespect us like that.
not millennials.
We're a different
they are not
generation.
millennials. So
We're Gen Z.
which is even worse for them. They are more open to race, more open to gender, more open to orientation, more open to class, more open to faith than those before them. So I think it's going to make a very interesting conversation since they are here today. So let me just say, full disclosure, let me ask everybody here on the show, have you dated outside of your culture? Have you dated outside of your race? Let me see the hands of those of you who either have dated. Full disclosure, full disclosure. Patty, raise your hand. All right, good. So just about everybody here have either dated outside of your race, outside of your culture. So when it comes to love, family, we generally, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, we generally kind of form loving bonds based on proximity and access, right? You date people you know. If you're in college, the chances are you're going to date around people around who are in college around you. If you're in the workforce, you tend to date people around that category and so forth. So you date based on proximity and access, right? Depending on wait. Depending on the communities where you live. That was before the internet.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, because I know you guys are gonna come at me. That was before the internet. Now with online, there's online and online dating and all kind of stuff going on. So the doors are wide open now for you to venture out and do exactly what you want and date who you want to date. So let me ask you. The very first question I want to know is, would you ever date? Well, I guess the answer is yes. Everybody already put their hands up. Why did you consider dating someone outside of your race or outside of your culture? Was that an automatic thought that came up because that's part of you, or you literally made up your mind and you say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of dating Haitian. They're up to no good or whatever. So from now on, I'm gonna date this type of people. Cynthia, let me start with you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he picked on you, Cynthia. He
I
picked
know.
on
I
you.
saw that. Like, wow, thank you, sir.
No, I picked on you, Cynthia. I picked
No, it's
on
okay.
you because
well,
I remember. Hold on, I remember clearly. You said right here on this very show that you'd never dated a Haitian person.
no.
So that question is perfect for you because I want to know. Did you have this automatic thought? Or was that something that because you kind of grew up in the culture, you watched the Haitian man, the Haitian man you knew, okay, and you made up your mind, you know what? No, no, I'm not doing this.
Woo, you know what? I always say if I were to date a Haitian man, because you have to understand bringing someone into your family. And my parent, not to say, okay, my parents and my family are kind of, I don't want to say bougie, but they're a bit very sophisticated, So the Haitian I was around with growing up, they didn't speak French. And as discriminatory as it sound, if I were to bring someone, they would expect them to speak French. And them not speaking French, it was just like, okay, if, automatically, if you say you Haitian, the first thing someone does is, comment vas-tu, right? They speak French and they address you in French, Whether they don't care if you speak it or not, they'll address you in that. So that was one thing. And then the mentality, like,
Yeah, tell
I
us
was
about
born
the
in the
mentality.
country, but I felt like I never,
Mhm.
that mindset was never me. So, and I said, you know what? Not all, there's some Haitian men who's not close-minded, but majority of the people I hung out with were close-minded, and I didn't want to be put in that box. So of course I ventured out. My first official, oh God, I hope my dad's not watching this. Well, who cares? It's years ago. My first official boyfriend that my parents knew of was African American. But prior to that, my first he was French, like not born Haitian. None of his parents were Haitian. He was French. And then I dated a Portuguese guy. And then in my early 20s, I went to work. I did this white security guard at my job. My mom found out and then gave me, listen, I don't want to say, like, she really put me down. And then of course it didn't work out. But after my official boyfriend that my parents met, we dated officially for a year and off and on. And then after we broke up, I said, never again. I'm not going to date. I'm going to find myself. And then I met my husband, of course, who's African American. Not only is he African American, he's not from up north. He's from a small town named Dudley, North Carolina. The reason why I was attractive to him once, he was cultured. He wasn't that, Southern. He had all the Southern hospitality, but of course he didn't have the mindset where, like the typical stereotype of close-minded. The Southerners are very close-minded. Yes, he had mannerism, but he wasn't close-minded. So our personality match. And that's where I am. Like, I never had the desire to date a Haitian. I know it's sad. I'm sorry. And I'm very Haitian, like Zo for life.
Listen. She said she's very Haitian.
Yeah, but I couldn't, I don't know. I just couldn't.
For the sake of our friendship, we're not going to crucify you on the show.
Do we not? Are we not?
Wait.
I want to take a moment.
Myself? Like, should I sing the national anthem?
No, that's all right. We're gonna come back to you because you said a few things that I believe are very interesting. You mentioned the word close-minded, or I want to know a little bit about that. What you mean by close-minded people from that particular culture. Would you have someone here on the Remedy today that I think it's only fitting that you are the one to introduce him.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. So on the line, we have Tommy from Florida, who's going
What's up, Tommy?
Tommy, put your phone down for a minute. Okay. So Tommy's going to be joining us, and Tommy and I have been friends for a while. And I know that Tommy feels very, we lost him, but he's going to come back on probably. Tommy feels very strongly about this subject. He and I have had many, many discussions about dating outside, in particular, your race, not necessarily culture, but I know that this conversation is intertwined. And so I thought it would be interesting to get another perspective on the call. So Tommy, once he comes back on, will be able to introduce himself and give a little more about who he is. So I think he's having a little technical difficulties. He's actually on vacation, and so he's taking a moment off of his vacation to be with us. So we appreciate him coming on.
Yeah, Tommy, if you can hear us, number one, I want to say thank you so much. You're actually on vacation and taking an hour from your vacation to participate in today's conversation. So that means a lot to us. Welcome.
Thank you. And it's certainly not a problem. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Patty.
How are you?
Good. How about you? I'm sorry. I'm in a hotel and I'm trying to find the best spot. So
this is
kicked
good.
Off again.
Now, quick question for you, Tommy. Full
Yes,
disclosure before we begin. Have you dated outside of your culture or outside of your race?
Not since middle school.
Oh,
but yes, like 8th grade, 9th grade year, she was Puerto Rican. But yeah, that was the only time.
Okay. All right. So good. So everybody here have done it outside of their race or outside of their culture. So let me see if I can and anybody can go ahead and answer this. How should I put this candidly? Are there any pros to dating outside of your race or outside of your culture? And if we do have some, what are they? I want to hear the pros because I got a feeling this show is gonna take a long time. We're gonna spend a long time talking about the the cons. But I want to hear about the pros. You know, for me personally, I feel like it's a beautiful thing because you always have something to talk about. That culture is fresh, is something you don't really know. So there's always going to be stories that's going to be fresh for you from that perspective. But outside of that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. So you guys enlighten me if you may. Go ahead, Wendy and Melody.
So basically, something that I've noticed is like it's kind of like less pressure because like I like obviously like I'm Haitian, but I don't speak Creole or anything like that. And sometimes like talking to other Haitian people, like you feel pressure to like look more Haitian, if that makes sense. Like you share all these cultural aspects. So the judgment is already there about what kind of person you should be or they should be even. And like you don't have to really deal with that when you're like dating outside your race or your culture. Like you get to learn about each other's culture together, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had different experiences because, I mean, even though we're the same generation, of course, there's going to be like differences. Like, I'm much younger. So dealing with like Haitians that are like around my age, we kind of all understand each other, but sometimes like we'll do get to talking and it doesn't feel like we have to bring home someone who's Haitian, unless your parents are like super strict or something. It's more just like, well, I just find this person attractive, or I really, get along with this person. We don't tend to think about their ethnicity. Sometimes it can be a bonus, but I feel like that's a bonus. I feel like that it depends on the person. Like when I talk to my Haitian friends, we're just like, well, sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, I just want a Black person, because we'll have that relatability. But I just feel like, at least in my case, I just don't tend to look at their ethnicity. I just try to, if you're a person that I get along with, it's enough.
And it's expected based on research. Your generation, it's expected. You guys are more open, and as I was saying earlier, more open to date outside of your race, your gender, your orientation, your faith, even. So it's kind of expected for this generation. Pat, I want to hear it from you.
Well, it's definitely, I mean, I can hear what Wendy and Melody said. And for me, it was the diversity exists. I love the diversity in terms of my husband was born here, but his mother's Jamaican, his father's Puerto Rican, I'm Haitian. So in my household, the diversity, the Caribbean diversity is all over. We've had the opportunity to experience Jamaican food, Jamaican places, Puerto Rican food, Haitian, and we cultured our family like that. And I'm very much into diversity and cultural diversity. So that's definitely a plus. Another plus, I think has Melody and Wendy alluded to it is, when I watch my friends, and again, I'm not first generation American, but to some extent I kind of am because I came here, I think at 11, 12. So I don't really, when I go to Haiti, I don't really fit what Haitians consider. They don't consider me Haitian. And I don't fit 100% here because I wasn't born here, but to some extent I fit more here than I do in Haiti. So I'm in that limbo stage. And when I look at some of my friends that married Haitians, and when they have problem, how the community comes together to settle their marriages for them, I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't have to deal with that. My husband and I, we have our problem. Nobody else gets into it unless we invite you. And, we don't have to deal with that. And that is definitely a plus for me. There's a lot of cultural thing in relationship to how strict certain things are that I don't have that pressure. Because one, I didn't marry a Haitian too, good or bad. My parents are not around for me to even have that culture that I see some of my friends go through, because their parents are around and they married Haitians, and they just a little bit more into their business than what I'm accustomed to by now. So there's definitely some pros against it. And for me, I think the primary one is the diversity that we experience as a whole and that we embrace within our family.
Okay. I'm gonna jump to Woody.
Pros. So I'm of two minds of this. Like, I think that we have to be careful about generalizations about any particular group. And so, I think the relationship is what you make it and who you make it with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess, so I've dated outside of my race and my culture, right? And so, learning about someone else's culture is cool. I can go on vacation and do that. But there is a comfort in dating someone who understands when you say certain things, certain shorthands, certain food, certain things within your culture, even dancing. Like, there's something about
You're going into please.
Huh? I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not, but that's what I'm saying. Like, for me, it's not, you guys have said, like, all of these things that I'm like, okay, that's fine. But what else is there other than those things? I don't know. So that's what I'm saying, that, like, for me, whomever I've dated, it's been because we've connected and because of personality. Right. And I've had good and bad relationships with Haitian, non-Haitian, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I do know that for me, when I'm dating, the thing that is, like, consistent is that person either thinks we have similar, like, values, right? And so because we have similar values, it makes it easier. And so, yes, I've dated guys who were extremely, like, I remember back in the day, they would be like, oh, don't date like this because they'll beat you. You know what I mean? And then I dated it and I was like, oh, he didn't hit me once. But that's because we had the same value. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I've heard what other people say are pros that I don't agree with at all. So it's just tough for me to articulate, really. So, and we can talk about other things later on in the show, but I do want to bring them up later on. So
okay, all right. Finally, tell me, pros. We're looking at pros now. Of dating outside of your race or culture, based on your experience.
If there are any, I'll just have to kind of agree with Patty and just talk about maybe the diversity. Outside of that, I'll probably lean more with Rudy and say, I don't think there are many, but then again, I'm older. So because I'm older and kind of understand more of how the world works, and I'm Black American, so I grew up in this country, descendants of slaves and all of that kind of stuff. Just understanding how racism is in this country, I don't think there are many pros outside of you're exposed to a different culture. You're going to learn more and become more diverse as a person yourself. But beyond that, there are too many things that have happened in this country that give me pause. So now, being an older person, I probably just wouldn't say that they're outside of diversity. There's more than anything. There's more than that.
And you know what, Tommy, it's amazing that you're saying that, because, we've seen everything that's been happening in terms of evolution, in terms of George Floyd. And I've always said, for my friends that are interracial, it must be very hard to stay the course with your partner, and there's kids involved. It's extremely, I have to think, it has to be extremely hard with everything going on to stay the course and keep reminding yourself why you got together in the same place and not come at each other, because we've been having some very harsh thing, to the point that even me, that have friends from different culture, you know, there was a time it's like, if I don't hear from them, I don't care. We've known each other for 30 years. You gone. You know, that was where I was at. I don't care what we had. If I don't hear from you, I'm done with you. So, you know, I've been thinking about people that have interracial in this time right now. You know, how is the tension? And I know that's not what the show is about, but I have to say, you know, what Woody and Tommy have said in terms of that, it can be quite tense.
Well, you know, as I was reflecting on this show, and I know we wanted to do a show about culture, and I remember saying that we can't just have it on culture without tapping into race, because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to, and here we are doing that right now. So, forgive me if I ask this question: is it really racist to have racial preference? In other words, as it applies to dating or friendship or marriage, is it really racist to have a racial preference? It is possible for people to grow up and where they are not exposed to this multi-diversity, multicultural phenomenon that we have, for example, in the big cities, you know, like New York and Chicago and Philadelphia. And there are places where, you know, you'll find people more like you than, you know what I mean? So for someone who kind of grew up that way, and they themselves say, you know what, I'm not attracted to a black skinned person. If someone from that race was to say that to you, they happen to be white or Japanese or Asian or whatever, they are not attracted to black skin. Is that comment really to have a racial preference? Is it really racist? Because I'm struggling with that, because people have the right to like or don't like based on how they grew up. Right? You and I, we have likes and dislikes based on the people that we grew up with, people that we realize are better for us than you know what I mean? So is it really a racial statement to say that? Yes, Cynthia.
Yes and no. The no part, based on your statement, you know, you grew up in an area there's no black people. It's 2020. The news is exposing so many racial things that's going on. So to tell me you have not seen black, you don't know black, that's bogus. But no, if that's your preference, that's your preference. But the problem is if someone in that same race marry or date someone of a different race, i.e. a black person, Asian person, then don't make it seem that, or they are, you know, bad. So it's a flip coin. It's never gonna, I mean, you could never satisfy people. It's 2020, the race, black people being stigmatized since I don't know when, since beyond slavery, you know, and it's still happening in 2020. Now to tell me that you never seen a black person, or if you see a black person, like, wow, I never seen a black person, you know, it's kind of, it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I'm black. And let me tell you, just to be honest, there are times I'm in front of someone who is so black, I have to stop and look because their skin color is hold on. I'm just saying to you that in the same way that I'm amazed when I see someone very, 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 very dark skinned. There are times, hold on, there are times you might be in a place or a position where you are not exposed.
Monday.
Yes.
But Cynthia, to be honest with you as well, is I mean, I've gone to places before international and people look at me because they haven't really seen a whole lot of black people, but I get it, with the internet, you're going to see that. But seeing a black person and interacting, understanding what that black person is about is two different things. Just like seeing an Asian person for me and understanding what that Asian person is truly about is two different things.
Yeah, that's different. And I get that. But to say, you know, to be in our art, to see a black person, yeah, there's different shade of blacks. But even in magazines, models are being like, they're exposing more dark-skinned models than Caucasians. So to say not to ever seen one, it doesn't sit well with me, man. It's
But
just
then you also have cultures where it is also a thing to marry within your culture. So
Yeah.
if it's a thing to marry within your culture, anybody else outside of your culture, does that mean that that person is racist? I don't think
no,
so. If
not
it's
at all.
meant for them to marry within their race, for me, I like all kind of races, but there's definitely some race that I know I'm not interested. And that doesn't make me a racist. I am interested about you as a friend, but personally, I don't really think that I would be interested dating somebody in that race just because physically I'm not attracted to that specific race. Does that mean that there might not be one person that I'm like all about? Possibly, but I'm just physically not interested in that specific race. Not because they're a bad race, because physically it just doesn't do it for me.
Okay, Woody.
Okay, so there's so many things, right? So first of all, you seeing a darker skinned person that is so black catches your attention because that's an anomaly. That's just like seeing a very pale person with red hair, right? So it's because it's an anomaly. So let's get that going first, right? So, you know, the idea that if you are of a race or of a culture and you say you are not dating people because not knowing who they are because of their physical appearance, that is problematic, right? You can have a preference, but if you are totally excluding a group of people based off of one thing, yes, that is racist. So I think sometimes we try to make things palatable for people and make it's almost like PC, right? And so you can find tall men attractive and want to date tall men, right? But that is very different than saying I don't like a subgroup of people because of one thing. And so I think that we have to be clear on what that is. And so there are stereotypes that go along with it, right? Like when white people, get wet, they smell like dog, or they smell like raw meat, or black people, are, I don't know, some of the stereotypes that white people have, like something about our hair or whatever it is. Because you have those preconceived things, like then you're not willing to do it. That's when the problem comes in. So I think sometimes when we try to act like, well, no, it's okay, it's just a preference, it's just this. No, it's just like, let's just call it what it is. If you are a black person and you say that you only want to date and marry white people, you have self-hate. If you are a white person that does the same thing, that's also self-hate. So I just think like sometimes we have to like just call it what it is. And listen, it's okay that you're racist or prejudiced or whatever it is. Just like be who you are, dude. Like, and let me know and we'll keep it moving. You'll stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. So I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, right? But like we just gotta stop with like, oh no, no, you're a word that I'm not gonna say right now, but you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. All right. Sorry, I keep on getting kicked out, but I'm done.
It's all right. Tommy, what are your thoughts?
So what's funny is that Rudy and I have discussed this too much because she keeps going for me and kind of saying what we've kind of talked about. So at the risk of repeating what she said, I just will say, going back to your earlier example about the Asian person and their preference. I think preferences they're innate. You like what you like, and you don't need to apologize for that. But tagging on to what Rudy said, if you are an Asian person who refuses to date a black person because in your culture, black people are considered like bad people or the worst people, and that's why you're doing it and not taking the step to get to know black people, kind of learn or go against what you've learned, then yes, that's racist, and you shouldn't be that way. But I'm not going to say that anyone should be ashamed or apologize for their preferences. We all like what we like. And those things are innate. We don't think about them. We see them. We have a physical, emotional response to those kinds of things. So yeah, preferences are okay. But preferences with biases, taught biases, that's a problem.
Well,
Agreed. But I think also, sorry, Mandy, I think that there's a blurred line because a lot of people think taught biases is okay. And I think we are at a place where we need to ask ourselves, is that okay? You know what I mean? Are we not liking a certain group because that's what we were taught? And if that's what we were taught, then we need to do something about it. Everybody's going to have their preference. Every single one of us have our preference, even amongst ourselves. If amongst your kids, amongst your family, you have your preference. But even some of the things we were taught before, I know I'm asking myself, okay, Patty, is that the way you need to look at something now? You know better. We're evolving. So are you not going to take that into consideration and then hopefully apply it?
Melody and Wendy?
Two things. We talked about this on the colorism episode, but when we talk about preference, I think we use the term very loosely. Because to me, preference is like, oh, I prefer bacon over
Sausage. Right.
sausage.
Right.
But if I'm presented with sausage and I'm hungry, I'll eat it. If you're saying that your preference is, for example, white people, like you just like dating white people, so you won't date a black person simply because they're black. Like, I'm not going to say it's racist, but it sounds problematic. When you put it that way, it's problematic.
Well, according to Woody, it's racist. Like we want to call it what it is. It's racist, right, Woody?
I just find it kind of strange that people refuse to date a certain person or a whole subgroup of people simply because of one thing that they can't change. Like,
You're telling me you find every white or black person disgusting to look at? They're beautiful people from every race. Like, I don't think.
Exactly.
I think that our biases play more into our preferences than we believe we do.
All right. So here's a question that I have. And this is coming from YouTube. And Market is asking, but what if you prefer someone outside of your culture because of the things you saw growing up in your own culture? Unfortunately, I wish we had more around that question. What exactly did you see? So it basically is asking, is it wrong for him to date outside of his culture if the things that was going on in his culture were things that he was not okay with?
Markel needs to provide example. We're Haitian. I want to find out what he knows.
Yes. Really? Yes, really.
So I think there's two parts, right? And I have a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's two parts. One, if you saw something unhealthy, then that might be your household and not necessarily your culture, right? Or that subgroup that you're in, not necessarily a cultural thing. So let's be honest about or not be honest, let's be, clear-eyed about what that is. Because
agreed.
For instance, for the audience members who don't know, Monty, Patty, Markel, and myself, we're all cousins, right? Even though we're all cousins, we grew up in very different households. Mm-hmm. Our experiences are completely different, even though we're from that same family tree. So to say that you saw something within your culture, I agree. What is it that you saw that is quote unquote culturally that you didn't like that made you go outside of that culture? Because then maybe it wasn't the culture, maybe it was the households or the surrounding households that influence, or your community that influenced that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Perfectly said, Ruby. Perfectly said.
Thank you, cousin.
Oh.
So my question is to the group. There is this conversation about Black love and the Black family, and also being quote unquote, not quote unquote, but being pro-Black. Can you be pro-Black and be for the Black family and marry and have children outside of your race?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Why not, Tommy?
Tommy said no.
Yeah, why not, Tommy? I want to know.
You're on mute, Tommy. Tommy,
I
take
wanna
it.
Tommy, you're on
know.
mute. I'm going to take
Oh,
a
I didn't
crack
realize
at
you.
it.
No, I was just no. I didn't realize it was. So I'll say
Okay.
this. I have a really, really great friend. I won't tell this. Rudy's heard the story. I won't take up all of the time and go through the story. What I will say, for me, the answer is no. Because in my mind, if you are pro-Black and you are for the Black family, in order to further that idea, you are going to marry someone Black, have Black children who aren't going to have identity issues, and you're going to do that for the betterment of this Black race or the Black family that you claim to support. Now, and I say that, and I'll say this, and like I said, I won't belabor it. If you are marrying someone who isn't Black and you are going to have a biracial child, the identity issues you are going to have, your chances are you as a Black person are going to observe the one drop rule, and you know that your biracial child is Black. Whereas your significant other or spouse, the other parent of that child, is never going to refer to the child that way. They will always say biracial. They will not observe the one drop rule. So in that regard, that's why I think that you cannot think that that's okay.
Does everyone know what the one drop rule is?
We do.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do.
We understand why that's also problematic.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay. I'm gonna do the identity issue part. I have identity issues, and both of my parents are Black and Haitian. I feel like sometimes I don't fit in with my Haitian friends, with my Black friends, with my friends that aren't even in my culture at all. I'll just be like, bro, where do I even belong? Like, I'm in a whole group by myself. Like, okay, I'm Black, but some people don't even see me as Black because I'm Haitian, which I didn't even know was a thing. Some people see me as, you're not really Haitian. You don't speak Creole. Your parents aren't together. You're not involved in the Catholic Church. I'm like, okay, well, but I'm all of these things. And I still was having an identity crisis. And then I look at my mixed friend and they're like perfectly happy. They're like, well, yeah, in the beginning, I didn't really know what to call myself. But I'm like, yeah, I'm Black and I'm also white. I feel like that's a generalization on mixed families. Of course, I feel like everybody can have an identity crisis about their identity,
Especially living in America.
Yeah, especially if you live in America, especially if you're not exposed to people outside of your culture or inside your culture. Like if you're a Black person and you tend to go to a predominantly white school, you might have an identity crisis because you're not around a lot of Black people. And it could be vice versa. You're a white person going to a predominantly mixed school and you're just like, well, there's nobody I could really relate to. I don't know what white people problems they have, but like it really I think it could happen to everyone,
And I think like there's a personal responsibility that we have. Like I personally think you can be pro-Black and date outside your race. It's a personal responsibility. If you're dating people who don't care about Black people the same way that they care about you, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You are attached to your culture. If I'm dating somebody who's Asian, I should care about the Asian culture just as much as they care about the Black culture. And they should understand that our child is Black and be able to not only live with that, but defend them as Black.
And I feel like it's kind of harmful putting on Black people that we have to, have a complete like Black family in a sense to try to further our own, I don't know the word, but like further our own culture in a way, like why is it our responsibility as Black people to date other Black people and have a completely Black family because of what the outside world has put on us? Like, that's not fair. We're Black people. We should be able to date and marry whoever we want. If a Black person wants to finds love with a white person, let that happen,
I just don't want to restrict my life to, I don't want to say political movement, but said.
That's interesting. Going back.
I think for me, if you're pro-Black, the fact that, to be honest with you, any interracial relationship, the fact that that person will be in a relationship with you, whether it's black, white, whatever. It's usually because that person also has a diverse mind. If you're so strict, most of the time you're not going to date outside of your race, period. So to me, I think it would be okay if you're pro-black to actually have a family that's not necessarily pro-black. But if you're dating someone, you guys gonna set your own rules and make that pro-black looks like whatever it is that the two of you agree that it should look like. If that person is not of the same mindset of you as you, normally they're not going to be dating outside of their race, period.
Yeah, this is from YouTube from Fabiola. She said it starts to become racial when you're putting that particular race down, making that race inferior, or stigmatizing them on the basis on what society deems them to be. Thank you, Fabiola, for participating in the discussion. I don't know. I kind of agree with the girl. Cynthia, I'm coming to you. I see you dancing up there. I kind of agree with the girls on this one. I'm from a generation, I guess, the way I was brought up by my parents, in a way, maybe it has a lot to do with it. The heart wants what it wants. And so that usually is the first thing that drives my decision making. Okay. In our culture, they always say be careful because there are some people who makes decision based on their hearts, right? Not based on their heads. I think I am one of those people. I follow my heart. If my heart say you're the one, then you're the one. I just follow my heart. And so when it comes to dating, I feel that I don't think I should make that sit down and talk to myself, have that conversation with myself, and really tell myself, yes, you can fall in love, but if you're really serious about your culture and serious about the black race, you should not marry outside of your race. Um, I don't know. Is it wrong not to have this political agenda when it comes to love? Because my thing is, I think one of the problem that we are still experiencing, even in 2020, is exactly that. I think we are spending so much time making decisions that exclude each other instead of making decisions that include more more of each other. And because of that, um, we send subliminal messages. We send subliminal messages to our children as they begin to date. We let them know what to date, who to date, based on our own preferences. And we always say that racism is something that is passed down from generation to generation. And I'm saying perhaps we do the same thing as well. We're passing down our own biases from my generation to my children's to their generation. Obviously, my children are not even listening to me because they just told you what they thought. But in any case, I think what I'm trying to say is, I think we have a lot to we have a lot to lose as a black as black people. I believe that, and it's true. I also feel that we are part of the building process as well to erase racism. It's not something only the white people has to do. I think we also have an opportunity to raise young black men to see people for who they are, not necessarily focus on I got to make sure I marry another black person so that the black race will be more secure. Having said that, I understand, Tommy, where you're coming from. I understand it. I do. But should that be my main focus as as I involve myself into the dating world? Then I'm equally as, in my thinking, that is my own personal view now, I'm equally as bad as the white person who say to his or her own son or daughter, you got to be careful because the white race we becoming extinct, and you need to make sure you date within the white culture and keep the white culture strong. don't date outside of it. Both of us will be wrong, whether I did it as a white person or I did it as a black person. That's my thought of it. You guys go ahead and tell me what you think. Cynthia?
Okay. I have a question. I know when you say, I'm sorry, I know when you say to love, to protect the black race, to love the black race. Now, my disclaimer, my experience when I first came to this country, I had so many issues with African Americans. And I wasn't black enough because I wasn't born in the country. And even as I got older, and I love the history, I took African American lit. I love the African American history in this country. And even, from the roots of Africa, I've studied, I love it. And I even follow Juneteenth. Like, I have a love for that history. And was it 2016, I worked in a prison. I was a social worker in a prison in North Carolina. And one of the inmates, they heard my accent. They said, well, you're not black. I said, no, I am black. I'm not African American. And he could not differentiate those two because I wasn't African American. I don't know the struggle. I'm not black. So how is it that as a black person, where you feel like another black person, because you're not born in this country, does not accept you? How can you prolong, how can you secure a race that they don't want to accept somebody who's from the Caribbean or Africa because they weren't born in this country or did not experience the struggle that African American experience? It's kind of hard. So anyway.
But you married one. You married one, so it's okay. So it's not all of them.
Not all. But there's a few out there who doesn't think anybody from the Caribbean is black enough to experience the struggle that African American experience in this country.
Number one, we also went through that experience, so half the time they're wrong. Number two, this is back to what Dad said about, like, I've heard like people's parents have been like, oh, I only want you dating other white people, white people are going extinct, da 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 da. Science reminder, race technically doesn't exist. It's a social construct and it only has meaning because of history. Number two, like Cynthia brought up a good point. When we talk about race and culture I think is a way stronger bind than race is. So when we talk about furthering the black race, you're already excluding people from the conversation because some people don't think of themselves they think of themselves as their culture. So
like there's a lot of discrimination even
against immigrants.
Yeah, in the whole black community. Like I remember going to school and like African Americans were coming at actual Africans that, they came over like their first generation. So I'm just like, where is the disconnect? Like, I understand there's different cultural differences, but I'm like, we're still black at the end of the day. Like, I feel like we shouldn't have to further a certain agenda.
Yeah,
like,
I think this idea of black unity over culture is something that we're kind of modeling after white people, because white people all assimilated once they came to America. And so they don't really identify with their cultures, they identify with their race and their racial experience in America.
I'm sorry. Tommy, go first, because I have a lot to say. So go ahead, because I know you.
So, all right, well, I'll just say this. Listening to the girls, I assume that they have to be much younger, maybe college age. You all represent the promise of what I hope happens in this country. And what, in 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years, when you all are my age, what is actually happening. What I will not accept, what you're saying right now, is I know where I grew up. I know where I grew up, and I know what I've experienced. So my comments are based on that. I will not be deluded into believing that I, as a black man, am not responsible for ensuring that the black race progresses. What I also am not going to forget is the reason that there's so much dissension amongst Black people, whether you're African, Caribbean, Black American. I'm not going to forget that hate, that dissension comes from white Europeans making us believe that we are inferior because we don't have white skin. So that's a whole nother thing. And we cannot forget that part happened when we talk about African Americans mistreating Haitian people or African people and that kind of thing. We have been taught that people with black skin are bad, regardless of where you come from, by white people. We cannot forget that. If you grew up in this country or spent any time more than 1 year in this country, you cannot deny that has been happening systemically since Black people or people of African descent were brought over to this country. And I'll stop there. But again, you girls are really, really sweet. You give me so much hope.
Okay. Thank you. So there's a couple things. One, the idea that it is a divide and conquer thing that happens, right, through white supremacy. When you are in this country and you are an immigrant, what do they tell you? You're different. You like education. You like to work. You like to do this. You like to do that, to separate you from someone that looks like you. When I was in high school, I went into a class and it was a white teacher who was like, I was in my French class, and a white teacher was like, "Oh, your last name is Haitian." And I said, "Yeah." And they were like, and he was like, "Oh, you guys like education. You're different from the other students." So that meant to me, when I walked into the classroom, you had a preconceived notion about me, right? And then you found out my last name. Now you think differently of me. Now imagine hearing that, and then I go, well, maybe I am different. Maybe I do like education more than my African American brothers or sisters or whatever. And so the idea, I want you guys to all go back and look what happened with the immigration influx, especially from people from certain countries in the 1960s, and how they were able to integrate into this country because of the idea of working hard, right? And being like, you keep hearing that, so then you want to assimilate into that white culture. And so there's a reason why. And then as a Black person, an African American person, you're here and you're like, well, this immigrant is treated better than I am. This immigrant is told all of this stuff, hence causing a friction between you and this other immigrant. So we have to really, really dissect what that is. And also, education plays a really big part. Melody, I'm glad you said it. When an African American says you don't know something, or you can't express it because you weren't born in this country, but my people were still oppressed. My people were still enslaved. They were just enslaved on a different place, right? Like South America, the Caribbean, and even when we talk about, like, when somebody's like a Black British person of African ancestry, well, they may not have gone through slavery per se, but they still went to colonization. And so once we realize that we have more in common, then we would actually be able to get along better. But what happens is that they know the power we would have if we all came together, right? And so they put these little like Easter eggs in us along the way to keep us separate. The other thing is that the idea of like wanting to have a Black family, I think it's an interesting one, but I don't think that the culture part, I think it being of different cultures is an easier hurdle to get over as opposed to being a mixed race culture, right? I think that or mixed race couple. I think that because of systemic oppression in this country, there is a difference, right? Like African Americans didn't enslave Haitians. So understanding that it's not just, but that there's a difference between of like, oh, you have a different language or you have different food and, some other stuff. It's easier hump to get over when you walk out into the world and you're getting racial slurs from both people. So I think that like it is a very different thing. And so, yeah, there are ignorant people out there. Like I've had to tell Haitian people, when you say something about, oh, those Black Americans this, or if I've had a conversation with Jamaicans and they're like, those Black Americans this, and I'm like, buddy, when you show up in the world, people don't know your last name and they don't hear your accent. So we have to like put all of those things aside and realize that like collectively they see us as one. So I guess my follow-up question is to the group. Is there an argument to be made that being mixed is a culture of itself, right? Like if you are a biracial person, can they be considered, can a biracial person have their own subculture? I guess the reason why I ask that is because I know a lot of biracial people who they're the only people that kind of really understand what it is to be of this world, right? Like they're not white, they're not Black, they're biracial. So the only other person that they can liken them to is another biracial person. The follow-up to that is that do we think that how you present in this world also affects how you're treated, i.e., Tracy Ellis Ross is accepted as a Black woman in this world, right? Where Rashida Jones, who has a Black father, isn't. Is the way that you show up in the world also has something to do with how you are accepted within both sides of it? So I know those were two questions, but that's to the group. Tommy, you're on mute. Tommy, you're on mute.
Sorry, I took a phone call. Sorry.
No problem. No problem. So, who wants to take a crack out of the question? I think for me, I'm trying to understand the question. The first question would be about the subculture. For me, subcultures are part of a society. You are part of a society while keeping specific characteristic traits, right? So someone who is biracial have certain characteristic traits. So that in itself, that is a subculture, no matter how you look at it. However, how they grow up, how they are infused to the other cultures around them have a lot to do with who they become. I don't know if I'm making sense, right? All of us, for example, who grew up in Haiti, and some of us came here when we were younger. We came here, but by the time we made it here, it's almost like this culture was something completely different than what we were used to, and we had to get acclimated to it. We had to learn this culture in order for us to continue to do the things to excel, right? So I don't know what it's like for someone who's biracial, because I'm not in that shoe. Maybe one day we'll bring some biracial couples into the conversation. Maybe they can enlighten us. All I can tell you is life for them will definitely be different than life for me. I think they will have more to deal with in this conversation when we talk about racial conflicts. They will have more to endure than for me, who is 100% Haitian or 100%. You know what I mean?
But do you think that's also because of how they show up in the world? That's why I brought up.
Well, no matter how they show up in the world, let me give you an example. I'm a photographer. And I've met this. She happens to be, her father is Haitian. Her mother is from Germany. Okay. She's definitely, I mean, you look at her, she's definitely mixed, but she looks so white. Unless she tells you she was Haitian, you will have never known. She has no accent whatsoever, but she hold on to her Haitian culture. And when we started having conversations, she broke out in Creole, speaking to me in Creole. So to me, that's what I'm saying, that she made a choice to hold on to that part of the culture because it was important to her, or maybe the way she was brought up as a child, they infused that in her, making sure that she understands that she's a product of two cultures coming together, that both of them are equally beautiful, both of them are equally important.
So
And
let me follow. Let me follow up because I just want to make
Sure.
it clear, right? So, for example, I have numerous friends, and I also have family members. I have a cousin actually whose father is white, and mom is my aunt. She's black, right? With the way he shows up in the world, he looks Italian. He doesn't look black, right? I have another friend who Tommy met, and actually, this is kind of like a funny story. We have this annual trip. We go to California, and my friend is there, and he comes over, and we're having this discussion, and I'm Tommy's going in, and I'm just quiet because I'm just like laughing, and then my friend finally tells Tommy, I'm biracial. He looks Latin. People thinks that he is he looks Mexican because he's really fair or whatever. And so when I say the way they show up in the world, I think that, and what he tells me all the time is that he's in the military, and he will be with a group of people who don't realize that he is black, and the conversations they have around him, not knowing he is black, is very different once they find out he is black. He says that he will hear racial slurs, he will hear this, he will hear that. And then when he says, I am black, then they're like, oh. So when I say show up different in the world, I mean aesthetically, right? Like how you maneuver in the world, does that make a difference? And so, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to say. So I just wanted to have clarity.
I think that it does. I think that the subculture is important. I do think there is such thing as interracial subculture. There's such thing as Haitian subculture, as Mundi explained. I feel like when I go to Haiti, people don't see me. They call me the diaspora, and because there's so many. Like my husband said, I'm more American than I am Haitian. I've been here longer. I'm more American than Haitian, but I don't consider myself American like my kids would because my kids were born here. So I do believe that there are subcultures, and I do believe that what you look like also when you interracial, I do agree with Woody that it makes people kind of treat you differently. If you look more black from the outside, then then it's a different thing than if the person looks more Caucasian, and specifically if they don't go into their heritage, I think they're treated and stuff differently as well. But that is a whole different set of culture, subculture, I would think, based on the experience that I gave for myself.
Tommy?
I'll just say that there's a lot of overlap or intertwining of the word culture and race.
Right.
We need to keep in mind that they're very different. Race is what you physically see when you see someone without hearing them speak, knowing their name, or anything like that. You know that they are a person with black skin, white skin, that kind of thing. Culture are the things that we have been taught by our families and other people that look like us. So as I hear your comments, we just seem to keep intermingling the two. So, and I just want to make sure that there's a clear distinction. So when we're asking these questions or responding to these questions, we need to be responding to the fact that this is about race or this is about racism, not so much about our culture or what we've been taught.
Correct. We have someone on Facebook. She wrote a good deal here. Let me see if I can make sense of it all. She say dealing with a lot of judgment, biases, and racism for the most part. Now, for those of you who don't know who this is, Esther, she's Haitian, but she married outside of her race. Okay. Everyone has the right to choose to love whoever they want to love, though love conquers all. Comes down who loves you and wants to spend the rest of their lives with you does not change the way the person are. It's important for me to teach my Haitian and Puerto Rican kids both cultures and languages and tell them that they don't need to choose a side because they don't look black and they are going to struggle with fitting in. And I think she has more that she wanted to say, but YouTube cut part of it. Thank you, Esther. Thank you. Please feel free to send us more questions if you have. So we're talking about now. This is someone who is married to a Puerto Rican and she's Haitian. So she has a biracial kid, and this is the way that she feels. Um,
But it's not considered biracial.
Biracial.
That's not biracial.
Wait, did I say biracial?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yeah, that's not biracial. It's like Lewis and I and the kids that we're not. The kids are not
Correct.
biracial, but they're all different
I'm
cultures.
gonna throw something at you guys.
Hold on. Can I make a correct? Can I get clarity on something?
Yeah,
You mind throwing it to me, putting it to the group, Pastor? Because it's
Sure.
good that I'm looking at you. So this is going to cause controversy.
go ahead.
Being Latinx is not a race. There are white, there are black, there are mixed, and they are indigenous,
Mhm.
right? So that is a culture, which is what Tommy was alluding to earlier, meaning that you can have someone with blonde hair and blue eyes and be part of the Latin community, or you can have someone of darker skin. So, Patty, while Lewis may be black, right? And so you guys are in a intercultural relationship. Her husband may be a white Puerto Rican. And so
His father is a white Puerto Rican.
Okay,
His father is a white Puerto Rican.
Okay, that's fine. But what I'm saying is that so he's a quarter white or half white, whatever. What I'm saying is that this person who we're talking to, we don't know what her husband is. So we can't say, or what he identifies with. So we can't say that it's not an interracial marriage because he may be a white Puerto Rican. And so we have to be, so just trying to make sure that we're all on the same.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, because Lewis's father is white with blue eyes.
Okay, that's fine. So then he, he's half white, but we don't know who that person is, so we can't say.
That's true. That's true.
Whatever. So go ahead.
All right. So this is for the ladies. This is something that I actually heard from Black ladies who go outside of their race and outside of their culture to marry a white person or whatever. This is what I heard. Black men aren't matching Black women and education and income. So Black women need to either settle for less or consider going outside of their race or culture if they truly want to stay ahead.
I've heard that a lot.
Okay.
I've heard that a lot.
So, I want to hear it from you ladies today.
I've heard that a lot. I've heard that a lot. And I think it goes back to what Cynthia have said in the past about the Haitian caliber stuff. You know, I remember when I was growing up, the area that we grew up in and the way we grew up, I remember my mother would say, yeah, the Haitians around there were not in the same caliber. And I'm not going to lie, they were in the same caliber as the caliber that we were in or grew up in. I mean, nonetheless, that wasn't the reason as to why I did not date Haitians or whatever. That wasn't. But I have heard, even with the generation, I guess the generation that's in their 30s now, Woody, I forgot what they're called, are they millennial? I've heard that from very close friends of mine that says, you know what, I said, why are you not dating Haitians? I'm not dating Haitians or Black men because in the level that I'm in now, I just can't find the one that on my level with the education and the kind of job that I have. So I've heard that.
All right. Thank you for your honesty. Woody?
I have something to say.
Oh gosh. Okay. So here we can't ask that question without asking why do Black men think that it is a status symbol that when they reach a certain level that they have to date a white woman. So we have to have both conversations. But that being said, there is this, I think for me, I have dated, so there's so much to say. But I will say this, that there was a point in time that I was dating these guys and I was making more money than they were. And it was an issue, right? And so I didn't say, well, I'm not going to no longer date Black men. I tried to change the group that I was with so that I can be around Black men who were of the same, like, well, even if they weren't making as much as I did, they had that kind of like drive and ambition so that we can become partners, right? And so that we can achieve it together. But you know,
but is that the truth though, Rudy? Or do you think, I mean, statistically, I mean, we know that statistically more Black women are going to college than Black men. Statistically, I don't know. I need to look into it. Statistically, are we,
right?
You know, are we Black women, you know, on a higher paid level? I don't know. I need to research it, but I'm asking you, is that the case?
So hold on, Black women get 70 cents on the dollar, right? So we're not the highest paid, but because of education, you tend to.
But Black women are the most educated.
Right, Black women are the most educated, right?
Correct.
So because of education, there's that upward mobility, right? So maybe because of that upward mobility, maybe you don't have as many quote unquote blue collar, right? Maybe we have a little more white collar jobs. So what I'm saying is that because of that, in the situations that I've been in, I have never said, well, this Black guy has an issue with the fact that I make more money than him. Let me go to the white man. Like that's not how it works for me. You know what I mean? I have also, the other thing is that like, I remember in this like stage of me going natural, yada, 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 white men were more accepting of my natural hair than Black men. But I still was like, well, I'm around the wrong type of Black men. You know what I mean? Like I had to find another group that I could relate to on that level. And so I know that there are a lot of dating websites now for Black women. I think that there are statistics. I think that there's also something that like the idea that you have to resign yourself because Black men don't want you. So you're like, I'm going to resign myself and then go outside of the race. And so because I do want a family and I do want to be married, I think that there is a mindset of that as well, right? That like, you know, but I think they were saying like a few years ago in New York City that like for every single Black men, the ratio of single Black women were like 12.
Yeah.
So it was like a really crazy thing, right? So here's the thing. So if I'm hearing that ratio is 12-1 as a Black woman and I want to be married, what other choice do I have? So I think that's part of it too. Like you resign yourself because you want a family and you don't want to be, you know, that person that's sitting out in the statistic waiting for this one guy who has like 11 other options.
Interesting. Melody, you had your hand up.
Yeah. So I think the overarching theme, once again, is capitalism and classism. Money is always going to be the great equalizer. So when we hear that women want to date someone within their own class, it's both a race issue and a class issue. The whole reason why race is such a big problem, well, why race became such a big thing is because of classism and because of capitalism in America.
Mm-hmm.
Like those two are always going to be connected.
This is really deep stuff right now, guys. Let's take notes. This is deep. I love it when we get this complete silence in the group, you know. No, seriously, I mean, I think you hit it right on the nail. It's very valid what she's saying. And this is coming from someone on YouTube. He said, if you fall in love outside of your race, I understand, and that's different. But if you choose not to date your race, aka Black, for example, because we're not on the same level, then you are following the game plan to tear apart the strength and value of the Black family. First of all, do you guys agree or disagree with that? And then he went on to say, honestly, I feel you did outside your ways, Black women and Black men, then that's why I think it's settling. is the easier path.
I don't agree with that last part. I understand where you're coming from, but I feel like saying settling sounds like so rude in a sense, because sometimes I find it hard to find the appeal with just dating inside my race. I really do. I don't find the appeal sometimes because I'm just like, well, what's the difference? If I'm in love with this person, aren't I going to love them regardless of race? It doesn't matter if I'm with someone who might be Asian, they're still going to call me the N-word. It doesn't matter if I'm with someone who's Black, they're still going to call me the N-word. So I don't understand where this comes from.
So I'm going to tell you, it's because you are still, it's kind of what Tommy made earlier. It's because younger. So because you're younger, you haven't reached a point in your life where you have settled, right? And so if you are 36, 37 in your 40s, right, and you want a family and you are looking for love and all of this other stuff, you then have to say, okay, what am I settling for? If you are settling. So I think that's the difference, right? That like you are still seeing all of the opportunity that there is, and the path forward for you is a little different than if you are in your late 30s or 40s and you want to have a family. And we all know that by that time, it is harder for you to conceive. Then you're thinking, well, I'm going to be this age and my kid is in school and all of these other things. So then you're like, okay, I've been holding out for this Black man for so long. God, I did everything you told me to. Now I can't get it. So let me go ahead and get Jorge or Chad or, Javier or, Ling Ling. You're like, I just, because Ling Ling sounded racist to me, but I had to go Ling Ling. I know that Ling Ling. So shout out if you watch it. But like, so I think that's the thing that you have to like, and so that's the difference that like, when you are of a different, I'm 43 years old, I'm not married and I don't want kids, right? I'm okay with that. But if I was 43 and I wanted to be married and have kids, I would have to sit down and have a conversation on how would I achieve that family, and should I exclude a subgroup of people because I wanted a Black family. Maybe I'm not finding these people that I want to be with, so I'm going to go ahead and allow, Chad to holler, because at the end of the day, me having a Black family is more important, or me having a family is more important as a preservation of race.
Question, because we spend a lot of time talking about Black women. This is for Black men in particular, because I'm on social media and I see it every day without fail. Black women get bashed by Black men so much. How are we supposed to reconcile that? Well, I mean, obviously, like, it's not everyone. Like, you have to find a respectful partner. But for people who aren't like surrounded, like we talk about proximity and access, people who aren't surrounded by respectful Black people, what exactly are they supposed to do? Like,
I think it's a loaded question.
Isn't that settling?
It is a loaded question. Number one, I feel that we have to change the narrative. Us Black men have to change the narrative. But I also feel that the woman needs to change the narrative as well. I have seen too much on social media, just like you say, Melody. There was a time a Black woman was respected because they carry themselves and such. Nowadays, whatever garbage Hollywood or the society wants to bring out, they just drop it in the lap of the Black woman and she'll do it. So I'm saying this to all the Black women out there. I want to hold you accountable just the same you're going to hold the men accountable. Stop shaking up your booty online thinking this is the best thing ever. Not that No. What are you looking at me funny? I mean it. One video just came out again. There's nothing in that video except booty shaking. It's like, is that all we have? No, there's so much more to being a black woman than showing up your booty online all the time. So I'm saying
So
there was a time that
women
women used to dress up. Hold on, let me finish. There was a time that our black women used to present themselves in such a way that it was beautiful to be called a black woman. Now they took the other way, they took the other route. They think selling sex is the only way.
only women who are shaking their booties online.
Well, I'm not generalizing it. I'm saying based on the question that Melody asked a question, and her question is saying that men, the way that we have behaved, the way that we are treating our black woman, I'm saying I want us to hold each other accountable. Black men needs to be held accountable. Black women needs to be held accountable. We need to stop I mean, listen, there's enough garbage in the world. We don't need to be the one to be showing it to the rest of the world.
Let's keep it all the way funky. There's a couple different things. One, it's not only black women who are shaking their butts, booties, ass, whatever online. And so women of all ethnic groups, whatever, do it. And so that's one. Number two, a lot of the times the women who are being attacked aren't even doing that. They're being attacked for being who they are, just a black woman living in this space.
Thank you.
So that's the conversation we need to have. We're not talking about those black women who are shaking their booties. We're talking about black women who are showing up in this world, and we are never enough for certain black men. We are either too dark, to this, to that, cast all different type of aspersions for who we are. And so let's not move the goalposts or change the conversation. Let's talk about these black men stepping up and treating me the way I need to be treated as a human being and as your peer.
I agree.
Hello.
I agree. This is from Team Adat, and I know who that is. This is my brother Ed.
I like Team Adat.
Respect needs to be given to women, period.
Thank
Shaking
you.
Shaking booty online or in the house as a culture dance is not the criteria for respect.
Hello.
Now, I'm gonna disagree with you guys. It's okay. We can disagree. My thing is, how should I put this? Maya Angelou. How many of you know who she is?
All of us.
Right?
Come on.
We all know who she is, right? But we all fell in love with her because of what?
Her poetry?
No, not me.
Oh.
Go ahead.
So has she praised women?
I fell in love with her because of, despite of what happened to her as a child, she did not allow that to define her to become who she was designed to be. Right? So what I'm trying to say is listen. Let me give you an example. Someone showed me a video. My wife showed me a video of a well-known artist, right? Who was on YouTube on Instagram watching some videos that was inappropriate, right? The moment her daughter walked in, she quickly changed the video. But this is the same woman who's also dancing exactly like that on video to make money. But she shield her daughter from it because she knows she doesn't want her daughter to be exposed to this filth. What I'm trying to say is, why is it that there's so much filth in the world? Why are we showing up so much filth within our culture on the screen, and our black women are doing it? I'm sick and tired of it.
Wait, Mello, can I just say one thing before you jump in? The reason why I love Maya Angelou is because she was honest about who she was. And her being honest about who she was made her a well-rounded person. While she was a poet, she was also at one point in her life a prostitute. And she never shielded anybody from what she was. She was a 360 whole human being. And so society, some people will only know her for the good parts and not the bad parts. And so I respect and love Maya Angelou, not only because of her prose and her poetry, but because she was honest about who she was in her past, and she didn't allow her to be relegated to that one point in her life. So go ahead. Go ahead.
This is a bigger issue than what the show is on about. I think we should come back to this. There's a market for sex. That's why it sells. If people weren't ready to consume it, people wouldn't do it online. If it wasn't a commodity, it wouldn't be popular. So I think when we talk about, oh, Black women shaking their butt online, they have no respect for themselves. What about the people who watch it? Hello. What about the people who regularly consume porn? There's a market for it. And I think like the policing of like women's bodies and like how we are to be respected is a big topic. Like honestly, like if I want to dance, I want to dance. If I want to post it, I want to post it. It doesn't mean that I'm less of a person regardless. If someone stops respecting me because I want to have fun in my room and post online, then they're clearly not a good, like, to me, I don't think that they're a good person or a person who I want in my circle, because we're all nuanced individuals.
And the idea that
men can sell sex without being stigmatized for it. Usher, Trey Songz, super explicit lyrics.
Grinding on the floor,
mind you, but nobody calls them the H word or the S word. Like they're just sexy. Like that's it.
And the idea, I feel like it's perpetuated on Black women that we only sell this one thing, that we only sell sex, that we're only good for this one thing. And it's harmful because in real life, you know, I mean, I'm not comfortable with doing that. I'm not going to bash anyone else for doing it. But then Black people will come to me, specifically Black men will get on me for being smart or for being intelligent, or vice versa. They'll be like, well, why aren't you like this? And I'm like, why is it our own culture that we're putting ourselves in boxes? It does not matter if a woman wants to shake her butt online, because some people are going to watch it. She's going to get the check at the end of the day. And we should also be respected for being smart and intelligent, for also dancing well. You can do both. There's not one way to be a Black person.
To be a Black woman specifically.
All right. So what I'm hearing is you want to be respected for being a booty shaker.
Yeah. Let the get her respect.
You know what?
There's nothing wrong with that.
So can I tell you something? It was most recently I saw this video, and it was this little girl, and she probably was like 9 or 10, and she was dancing, and she knew how to do the savage dance, right? And everybody online was like, oh, I hope she know her ABCs. I hope she know this. I hope she know that. And her mom came on, and her mom was like, actually, she's in a dance team, a cheer squad, and she's a straight A student. But I had so many things. I said, well, first of all, she's 8 or 9. She has to know her ABCs by now, right? So why are we asking if this child know her ABCs? Secondly, I've seen the way some of y'all are in these comments. It took me 2 or 3 passes to understand what y'all ignorant behinds are spelling and saying. But if she was dancing ballet or tap or jazz, she would not have been ridiculed the way that she is. And that's because we, as ourselves as Black people, have our own biases on how we treat Black girls in their Black bodies. And so once we are honest about that, then we can have a real conversation, because dancing is dancing. Listen, it's a form of exercise, it's a form of creativity. But again, this little girl, she was an honor roll student and a cheerleader and volunteers and did all of that stuff. But people didn't care, because all they did was they judged a 30-second video of her online. And that's the problem.
Going back to the topic of the day, Mark asks, so I'm struggling in the hood. Am I supposed to date Black, quote unquote, because it's the right thing to do for the culture? Nah, you can miss with that. So you say if that's the case, then let's just do orange. Let's just do orange marriages.
I told him he completely missed the point, and so we shouldn't even be acknowledging that thing. We gotta go to the next person.
Yeah. So let's say I'm trying to go online to see what is going on. Okay, here's one.
Your mic.
When you post online, you open yourself to online comments and perception. It happens in other cultures as well. So here's what I'll do. I think I'll open a can of a worm here. Because this is definitely a different topic. We will definitely reserve that for another day. But the topic of the day is exactly what we were talking about before I made that comment. Is it really that bad to date outside of your race? So final word, guys, is 136. I want to hear yes, yay, or nay, and final words. Let's start with Tommy. Tommy.
So I'll just say this: love who you love, marry who you want to, and just recognize that if that's someone who doesn't look like you, physically doesn't share your same skin color, there are going to be some will need to be made.
All right. Thank you. Cynthia?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but again, there's some pros and there's some cons. The cons is, as a Haitian, the joke in Creole could never be the same in English. No matter how you translate it, it's never gonna hit the same. So some word my husband know, and hey, to me it's fine. It's who I am and who he is. We respect both culture. I cook sometimes his culture food, but majority of the cook that's good at home is Haitian food. So I don't know.
Patty?
I believe in love conquers all. So as far as diversity, race, culture, at the end of the day, it's about how the two of you come together and how you respect and love each other. And if you do have kids, to value each other's culture equally is extremely important. Not to think that your culture is better than his culture. I have to agree with Cynthia on some cons. I love to dance Haitian music. My husband does not dance, period. So I've been with him since I was 18. So that's one area. It's like, okay, you know what? I guess it is what it is. You just, you can't go to a good Haitian bar with him. Or if you do, he'll go and sit in the car and watch, football or whatever's going on. In fact, Monday, you've witnessed that. And that's just what he does. And you just got to love him for who he is. But at the end of the day, it's about what the two of you decide to do. And it should be based on love. And I don't think there should be any restrictions.
Yes, ladies.
I'm for it. Honestly, I think that it can pose certain challenges, but it all comes down to how you view love. I view love as a commitment to yourself and to the other person, and with that comes their culture and their skin color and every other aspect of that person. So it's not a problem for me.
Yeah, I say. Okay. I say just put your heart out there, because you really never know. The person that you least expect could be your life partner, So I'm all for it. Yeah.
Yes, Woody.
I think in every situation, you just have to find a person that has the same values as you. And so when you are dating and making that commitment, or you make that commitment to marriage, you need to make sure that that person, when you are, it's not when you're like married, you're finding out that they don't believe the same things you believe in. So if I find someone who is outside of my race and is for the upliftment and the betterment of Black people, then that's okay. But then when I find out that, like, maybe he's like into something else and I've been fetishized, then I think that's the problem, right? So, it is nice to date someone who has similarities, who, like you said, understand food, understand your history, can dance compa, can do all of those things. But if you find someone who's outside of your race or culture, and willing to learn, and then you're willing to learn about theirs, then it is it makes for a more perfect union, not a perfect union, a more perfect union. But I just think you just have to find someone of your same values, and so that it's not a surprise when you're like, well, my child is Black, and they're like, no, they're not. Like that, it literally happened to Halle Berry. Like her husband does not, or her ex, whatever, her baby daddy does not like it that his child is considered Black. And so I think it's a little late that the child is like running around and you found this out. So maybe do your due diligence and have that conversation beforehand.
Well said. Well said. Well said.
I just wanted to invite the crew in helping me wish Pastor D a happy birthday. His birthday is on Tuesday. So I wanted to invite us in wishing.
Wait. Before we jump into my birthday, Luby's birthday just passed too. So let's take a moment to acknowledge her birthday. Luby, if you're watching the show, she's one of the crew from the Remedy. We're just gonna wish you happy birthday.
Happy
Go ahead.
birthday. And we also want to wish you, Pastor D, a happy, healthful, and prosperous birthday.
Thank you.
How old will you be turning?
I'm gonna be 27.
Okay.
I'm getting up there. I'm getting up there.
Can we also talk about, we're going to have a side conversation about not only your age, but also how your daughters don't speak Creole. We're going to have about your kids and Patty's kids and anyone else in the family kids who don't speak Creole, or Crayola, as somebody said earlier.
Wait. My oldest one speaks it very well. Ashley speaks it very well. So I got two that don't speak it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Mine does not.
Okay.
Because it was the whole point. If I speak it, then I have to translate for the husband. It's just
No, you're doing a disservice.
I know. Guess what? But I know that there's this book. It's a Creole ABC on Amazon. I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna teach them. So
it's on YouTube. You don't even need to buy the book.
No, listen, I have to have the books. I love books. So yeah, I'm gonna buy in 2 years. They're both gonna be fluent.
Happy birthday, Pastor D.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much, family. Thank you.
50th birthday.
Melody, say it in Creole. Say happy birthday in Creole.
Bon fête.
Wait, I thought you were saying isn't it bon anniversaire? It's just bon anniversaire.
I know, ma'am.
I already know that one. See, these tests. Bon anniversaire. I said it like 3 times.
You see, there you go. Listen, I want to take a moment to say a special thank you to my friend Tommy from Florida, who's on vacation, took the time to be with us.
Tommy!
You all are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Tommy, let me tell you, if you need a fun person at your house, Tommy is it.
Yeah,
thanks,
I can tell. Well, thank you so much for being part of the discussion today. It was nice having you. Well, my final word is simply this. I believe that you ought to seek the love of people who see you, hear you, value you, adore you, recognize you for who you truly are. I believe you owe it to yourself to be in a relationship where you can love and be loved in the ways that you need and deserve. So if those people happen to be of your race, glory to God. But if they happen to be of a different race or culture as well, I'll say you owe it to yourself to at least consider the possibilities. And the word of Paul in Galatians 3 verse 28, Paul says, listen, there is neither Jew nor Gentile, there is neither slave or free, nor there is male or female, for we are all one in Christ Jesus. What I want my children to grow up with is that understanding at the end of the day before God that we are all one. And it is time for us as a society, as people who believe in God, to really accept that, to believe that, listen, we are all one before God. So all this division between race and culture and ethnicity and all these things that are dividing us. When it comes to God, God is saying, listen, before me, you are all one. So I want to say thank you. It's been a thrill to have you guys on the show today. Thank you to Tommy. And to those of you who have been watching the show, we were all over the place today, but it's okay. It happens sometimes. Of the Remedy, part of the show today. We'll see you again next week for another episode. God bless you. Father God, in Jesus' name, we want to say thank you so much for allowing us to come together and discuss important topic and important discussions that we have around our kitchen tables. Help us to remember that you are the creator, that you created all human beings to live as brothers and as sisters. Lord, help us to have less things that divide us, but more things to unite us. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you, family. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful